And now we have some maybe 20, maybe 25 minutes for a discussion, questions and comments from the floor. Please, the floor is open to the questions and comments to the panelists. Yes, please.
Thank you, Madam, Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one observation and one question. And the observation is that I think the Nuclear Security Summit has produced a set of quite remarkable results. One has to ask why that is. And I think one of the reasons is because the goals have been clear and achievable and precise. Achieving these goals have not been seen as impossible, and I think all participants of the process should be commended for that. And maybe this is something we could perhaps transport to other less functional areas of our profession. Václav said that us who work in non-proliferation have a job for life. I disagree. In fact, funding levels are decreasing quite radically in this field at the moment. And it seems to me, at least, that it's a dying profession in many ways. Which comes to my actual question, which is to the IAEA. I think that your presentation highlighted a massive and impressive array of work in many ways. But you said 80% of this work is funded by voluntary contributions. Now, there are some who argue that that is the reason why you have been so successful and more successful than other, perhaps, offices of the IAEA. So I would like you to perhaps elaborate a bit more as to why you would want to move that contribution into the general budget. I can see why you would want to do that, but in terms of efficiency, what would the net benefits be?
Thank you. Well, you're right in saying that one can look at it from also the positive side, that this is also very important. Maybe this is one of the reasons why the program was successful. But from the other side is that it's hard, even for professionals, and really to be sure that, yes, they can work for a certain period of time. If you have a budget and you have people, competent people working on projects, and then, for less than 1 year, and that their contracts depend on voluntary contributions, so it's not an easy thing for them to fully concentrate, on, the real work, because they're thinking of their contract. But more importantly, where I mentioned that voluntary contributions sometimes could not serve, the whole program because of the conditions attached to some of these voluntary contributions. To give you a concrete example, you may have one donor, I will never give a name, of course, to say, look, I have these extra resources, but I want the International Atomic Energy Agency to use it for these projects for this group of countries. Imagine now that there are needs in other regions, in other countries, and if you not have sufficient predictable resources to help them improve their nuclear security, then you may have in the global system areas where nuclear security is adequate, but areas where there are gaps. And then the system globally will not be secure enough, because we're talking about global issues. You cannot only, you say that in your garden, you have good nuclear security, infrastructure, and you don't care about your neighbor, because that could affect you also, because nuclear security, of course, and especially when you transport also nuclear material and radioactive material, these are things that you have to think also globally, not only locally. However, to say that the situation has improved, even with these extra resources, because we have been talking always to the donors, telling them that, please, this is very important, contributions, but what we want is less constraints, less conditions that would limit the effectiveness of the program. So it's from that angle. But I agree with you that one can also look at it from also as a success. So what we really would like is to have sufficient percentage of such budget that it gives you, the predictability, the visibility to plan things. As I mentioned in my presentation, we have now 60 plans for the countries where nuclear security should be improved. And what we want is to have such plans for 100 countries, 120 countries where we are cooperating, with them, so that we can work together with them to improve security, but in a predictable manner, rather than, wait and then there are conditions and you cannot achieve what you want to achieve. So this is, I hope I clarified, this. Thank you.
Thank you. Other question or comment? Yes, please.
From Slovenia, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to attend this summit. And my question to this board is, you talked about non-state actors acquiring nuclear technology and nuclear weapons, but what is your position on perhaps if one nuclear power state would become a failed state? Is there some discussion which action should be taken in that case? Oh, thank you.
Yes. Who would like to answer this? Yes? Yes, please.
I think it's very good question and pertinent question. When you talk about nuclear security, our focus is narrowing down to non-state actors. So that non-state actors with any malicious intention cannot acquire nuclear materials or access to nuclear facilities. So that's the reason why all participating countries are in same direction, in same boat, to check any diversion of this material to the non-state actors. But as you said, there is some possibility that any country intentionally or inadvertently, if there is any failed system of protection on nuclear facilities and materials, could be transferred to the non-state actors such as terrorist group. So this is, frankly speaking, gray area. I think we can assume that possibly, North Korea could be one of the that possibility can be realized if they can control their existing nuclear materials and devices. But I think at this juncture, we don't discuss in that particular area because that will touch upon I think we are passing a threshold of our basic scope of discussion in discussing I think non-state actors. But I think we should be vigilant on that particular area so that the interconnectability between state actors and non-state actors and vice versa. So I think we have to continue to discuss this nuclear security area in the future. Probably this issue will continue, as mentioned by previous speaker, that there is a strong demand of nuclear energy with I think more construction of nuclear power plant, and also there is a continued need of nuclear material too and radiological material too. So I think we have to keep this point in mind in the future, so that we have to tackle this area in the future as we increase our scope and density of our discussion. So I think it's a sort of a ratchet approach to the all the area of commonality of participating countries. But I think we have to increase our discussion to other related area as you mentioned.
There was a question over there in the second row. Yeah, yes, please.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. My name is George Tabe from the Metropolitan University at the Faculty of International Relations and European Studies. Thanks again so much for your presentation. It was nice and coherent, brave, and full of good thoughts and good things that could help us in our studies. Excellencies, I would like to ask you that so far, from the first panel to the second panel, we've been hearing you people talking about counter-proliferation, non-proliferation, you know, everything that has to do with nuclear weapons, as if these were the only things that could cause, you know, huge casualties on human lives. Now, looking at Africa presently, from the continent from where I come from, arms and conflict have devastated, ravaged families and torn them apart. And nobody has talked about the sales of arms. But I'm wondering, and I'm so surprised that those talking about counter-proliferation, non-proliferation, are those actors that are themselves involved in the sales of arms to African countries, to African faction leaders, for the change of regimes, and why don't they talk about the ban on the sales of arms? And my second question will be, the South Koreans have taken a part on refusing on building nuclear weapons or developing. They want to be neutral on this aspect. Seeing Kim Jong-il attack over the South Koreans' warship that left some military personnel dead by the torpedo attacks. Again, this shows again how vulnerable the South Koreans are. Which measures is South Korea taking and preventing any nuclear attack over their territory, if one is being taken next time? Thank you very much.
Who is willing to take this question? It's not an easy one, really.
Let me respond only what you said regarding possible attack, probably, as you mentioned, nuclear attack to South Korea. I think South Korea, Republic of Korea is very proud to continue and sustain this non-proliferation commitment, even though we face, you know, direct threat from the North Korea. And this commitment is quite long and, you know, consistent for several decades. With the famous, you know, 1991 denuclearization declaration on the Korean Peninsula, subscribed by North Korea and South Korea too. But unfortunately, North Korea was in clear violation of this commitment and then defiant to a non-proliferation regime. But I think we have strong, as mentioned by Gary, you know, in the morning, to have, you know, alliance with the United States, you know, to address any possible provocation from North Korea. And also, I think we are in very upper hand in discussing, you know, any nuclear-related issue, as demonstrated in Seoul Summit. You know, we are in the very, you know, model and example case of the developing peaceful uses of nuclear energy without, you know, tempting to the development of nuclear weapons, you know, even in the face of very clear and present danger from the North Korea. So I think in the long run, we are in, you know, good position of negotiating in any development in the Korean Peninsula, in the context of six-party talks. And Korea, even though we don't have any nuclear weapons, and it will continue in the future, but I think we are confident that, you know, Republic of Korea, with the example of, you know, leading just G20 meeting as well as the Nuclear Security Summit, will demonstrate to the world that, you know, Republic of Korea is the, you know, leading country and leading motor, you know, to lead the, you know, destiny and the future of the Korean Peninsula. I think this is very clear signal to the international society. So, but as you know, thank you for your concern on this vulnerable situation. But I think we are ready to respond to any possible provocation with, our allies and our, domestic capabilities. Thank you.
Other question? Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Jan Smetana, also from Metropolitan University Prague, and I'm a member of the Center for Security Studies. And I would like to ask this. How is the position of the European Union in this issue? Because, which role the European Union plays in this issue? Because we know that a lot of countries, especially countries far from the European Union, prefer negotiation with one countries like with France, with Germany, United Kingdom, and other, and they don't prefer negotiation with the European Union like one common player. And how to improve the soft power of the European Union for this negotiation of and for this role, especially in the safety in a nuclear situation in the world. Thank you very much.
Václav, Bartuška, maybe.
Try to say nuclear energy at any European Union summit, and you will see that European unity is very, very far in the future. I think you could not pick any more conflictuous issue than nuclear energy in general. So from European Union, I don't see much of a unified voice, even in the area of non-proliferation. Because you clearly have a difference between states which keep nuclear know-how and nuclear research at high level, and are partners to the world, France, for example, and others who simply do not have the know-how anymore, or never had it.
Khammar, would you like to add something?
Well, thank you. My role here, it's not really to defend the EU, but only to provide you with some facts that we do have excellent cooperation with the EU when it comes to nuclear security. And then, but nuclear security, of course, it's in the what has been defined, meaning not non-proliferation, although there are links between, of course, nuclear security and non-proliferation and safety. We have many projects that are financed by the EU to improve, to establish effective nuclear security infrastructures in many countries and worldwide. We have now a program supported financially by the EU in more nearly than 80 countries in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, in Asia. And also the EU is also contributing with the International Atomic Energy Agency in establishing guidance and standards for nuclear security. It's only to tell you, yes, the EU is playing a key role in nuclear security activities, but of course, in addition to the members of the EU, as you said yourself, there are also the members like the UK, France, Germany, and others are also contributing to nuclear security globally. So in short, yes, the EU is playing an important role in nuclear security. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an excellent question and one that I personally identify with. My recent experiences, India, Colombia, Ethiopia, and Jordan, and suddenly thrust into the complexities of EU treaties negotiation, particularly on contentious issues, safety and security. I too am struggling to get my head around the finer details. But from our perspective, as I understand it, there are two distinct strands of work going on in the EU since perhaps the Fukushima Daiichi incident. The first one is the safety-focused tests of the EU nuclear power plants that were requested by the March European Council. And then there's separate work on security that was taken forward by the presidency, looking at best practice in nuclear security. We're working quite closely on both. There's a constant challenge, I think, and Khammar identified this as well. On the safety side, their culture is one of openness and transparency. On the security side, there's a very strong culture of secrecy and need to know. There are quite healthy and robust discussions amongst various member states on where you draw that line. We personally believe that there is scope to bring the two areas much more closely together than perhaps we do now, but we're very, very strongly committed to the belief that nuclear security is a nation member competence, a national level competence, that information that comes from security reviews is quite nationally sensitive for security. I'd like, if I may, just speak very briefly as well to two quick previous questions, just very briefly. The one on conventional arms and weapons is also something that I have an interest in because I have very, very close colleagues that work right next to me. I would only point towards two things. One is, obviously, this is a nuclear security discussion, that there's a limit to how much we can incorporate. But please do look at the work around the Arms Trade Treaty. It's making progress that I don't think people expected. I don't think they expected it to be this far, this fast. It's been a long, hard slog, but do please look at how it's going and which countries are joining up to it. There's been some significant achievements to that in recent months. And also, of course, there's quite a robust export license regime on conventional weapons. And from a UK perspective, we held to account by our parliament very regularly on this. And a very brief comment on the failed states issue and what would happen to nuclear weapons or fissile material. It's something that applies equally to chemical, biological, radiological weapons. This is why our team is CBRN security. It's something that we do an awful lot of thinking about. And the example I'd point to probably is the global partnership against the spread of weapons and materials of mass destruction. It looks, and it's worked quite successfully for the past 10 years or so, and billions of dollars have been spent around the world. But it looks quite specifically at strengthening countries' domestic security so that if things happen, if people move on, if there's a complete governmental change, the fundamental elements of security are still there and are easily understood and accessible. Point to Syria recently, or to Iraq after what you might call invasion. A lot of work went on securing the chemical materials there, the biological materials elsewhere, the potential radioactive sources in Syria. One of the first things that the international community does is try and identify and work with the country or the new government in securing that. Not necessarily to get them down to terrorists, but simply to secure them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason, for your input. Yes, please, Mr. Hahn.
I'd like to emphasize one more time the importance of the European Union's engagement in this nuclear security area. The fact that the next summit will be held in Netherlands, 2014, is also a significant factor, so that many countries in Europe can join this noble and important objective. And as I mentioned in my presentation, that several leading countries like UK leading information security area as a Friends of Chair or coordinator on this joint statement, and also Germany is in charge of radiological material issue, and France is in charge of HEU, highly enriched uranium guidance or management, and also Netherlands will be in charge of nuclear forensics area. So I think this in overall, I think a good démarche from EU side to increase the importance of this nuclear security area. And one point I'd like to mention in conjunction with information security, as presented by Jason, I think one area as mentioned in Seoul Communique too is that the importance of cyber security, particularly in the nuclear facilities. I think in the future probably terrorist or malicious intentions, there is a attempt to control the operation of nuclear facilities or nuclear power plant with a cyber attack, so that to produce some kind of malfunction of nuclear power plant, so that the radiation could be released. So I think this area is quite new and also important area in the context of nuclear security and safety. I think we have to tackle this point in the future, with the help of UK as well as IAEA. Thank you.
The last remark from the Khammar Mrabin.
Well, thank you very much. I will be very quick. It's only to insist on this global nature of nuclear security, like safety or non-proliferation. I think you have heard, many good examples like the information security or cyber security, but I think what we need is to have a unique reference in terms of guidance and standards when we talk about nuclear security. And so that everybody can follow, adjust, adapt such global standards. And this is what the International Atomic Energy is doing. So what you hear here also for information security, we have been working on this and together also with UK, and there will be only one set of standards for nuclear security. We will not have double standards, and I think this is very important that this global dimension, this global benchmark and reference, and I think, and I'm really thankful for what you said, that 21 times the International Atomic Energy Agency has been mentioned in the communique of Seoul. Yes, it's very important, but it's only to show you this global dimension. It's a key issue because nuclear security is a global threat to which there is a need for a global response, and for this you need a unique reference. So this is what we are doing with all the member states. This is why now a committee of experts from all the countries are contributing to the establishment of such standards, and together we are working together to implement and apply and use such standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Khammar. It was a really good last remark to this panel before my thanking to all the distinguished panelists for their contributions. I think this gave us an excellent overview concerning the latest accomplishment and future challenges in the area of nuclear security. There was an excellent overview of the accomplishment of Seoul Nuclear Security Summits, the work of the IAEA. We have also touched some challenges in the field of, general interactions and interconnections of various areas in nuclear field, and last but not least, new areas arising and more and more important, like information security. Really, I would like to thank all the panelists once again, and also to thank all of you for your active approach and for your interesting questions during the discussions. But before really closing, I would like to ask or to give the floor to Deputy Foreign Minister, Mr. Schneider, for closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Hello, don't worry, I'm not going to deliver a speech. I just want to thank this panel, and especially Mrs. Drábová, for not only leading this panel, but for the leadership she's showing in this meticulous diplomacy on nuclear security. Thank you for that. I think we are, and that was the purpose of having these two panelists, to show that this is not just the big words about treaties and regimes, but the devil and sometimes success is in detail. And so we need this kind of technical debate, and this message is for those who would like to work on this field. Especially for the students. I'm glad the students managed to stay for the whole conference, is that you need to have a unique combination of technical skills, some legal expertise, and a lot of stamina to stay on board and not to get frustrated. But I have a good message. Of course, there are no free lunches, but you all deserve lunch. And the lunch will be served, you go that way and to the left. Before we go there, I just want to thank all of you who made this happen as a successful event. So I would like to thank again the Institute of International Relations, especially the staff, conference staff, our public diplomacy department, who also helped, and all the service departments in the ministry. And of course, I would like to thank all ambassadors, especially Pierre, for the support and you gave us, and Camille, thank you for the contribution to the conference. Now's the time to refresh our bodies. Thank you very much.